Hey, War Saints. Father Chris here, Deacon Greg here. Welcome to our Crucifixion live stream. Glad to have you beautiful people with us. Good morning. How you doing?
Buenos días, muchacho. ¿Cómo está ustedes?
Bien. ¿Y tú?
Bueno, gracias.
It's better than I. I got to work on my Spanish. I studied Spanish for 4 years in high school, and I used to be able to speak it, but like any language, if you don't use it, it vanishes.
You lose it.
Now I have to learn all these languages that nobody speaks anymore. Holy Hebrew, Biblical Hebrew, and Greek. Anyways. All right. So, I did my run this morning. It was good. I was dripping, getting all the dirty toxins out the body, all the crap we eat. But it was an interesting thing. I mean, it was a hard one today because I didn't feel it. I wasn't feeling good about it. And, I'm not really a great runner at all. I mean, I'm not like a pro at it, but I do it just for health reasons and sweat reasons and all that good stuff. And it was painful.
Yeah. I don't run.
I
am definitely not a good runner, and it's never been anything I embraced.
You don't embrace it. That's funny. So, the reason I start with it is because, like I was suffering a little bit. Like there were, there's that constant desire to quit. It's not constant, but definitely it's a lot. And thank God. I mean, there were some times where I had to walk a little bit. I'm old, health issues, all that stuff. But for the most part, I ran my 4 miles and whatever, even in spite of the suffering, which kind of leads into a conversation that we should be having. Want to have it? Ready?
Go.
Well, I was going to say, you tell us. What's it about? What did we see? What did we find? What's the
So,
pictures?
Yeah, there's a lot out there. The question that comes up all the time, Joe Rogan actually recently, like 3 months or so ago, did a podcast on it. Kirk Cameron chose to respond to it. They asked the question, why does God allow so much suffering and death? And you see this stuff all over the place. You see questions like, why do bad things happen to good people? And we talk all the time about suffering and always from the negative.
Yeah.
It's always looking at suffering as though it's bad. But like you were talking about your run. Was the suffering in your run bad? Was the suffering, like you didn't have it in you, but you kept going,
Right.
Why did you keep going? What motivated you to push through that and to keep running?
Yeah. It's a great question. Really, I think it's the right way to look at it. I mean, I guess I could answer your question first by starting that, just to make clear, as we talked about Joe Rogan, why does God allow suffering? God allows it, doesn't cause it. So we want to keep that in mind, right? Like It's our, war and all the rest of the stuff Rogan was talking about is like our doing. All right. No, the suffering wasn't bad. I mean, it doesn't feel good, but boy, the result of it is great. You know what I mean? So I've noticed this, that the more I run, especially when I first started, however many years ago, I was fat and slow. Like I just wasn't a good runner. Still not like, but as I kept going, and it hurt, and the more I did it, the better I got at it, in the sense of able to run farther before I had to stop and walk, and then able to run the whole run without having to stop and walk. I was building up my endurance. The benefits of the pain today was the sweat. I mean, that was great because, like I say, I always love sweating, getting out any toxins from the stuff we consume. But also my mind was clearer. They talk about runner's high, the dump of all the chemicals, the neurochemistry, the chemicals in the brain that dump that make you, quote, feel good. And then ultimately there's hopefully some health benefits from it, right? Like, I don't want to end up in the hospital, right? So anyways, all that rambling. No, it was not negative, the suffering from the run. It was positive. It was good.
It almost sounds like the pushing through that suffering that was almost transformative, right? Like it starts to make some little changes. It starts to get you rolling. It gets you pushing in the right direction.
Yeah.
So is it that God allows suffering? Is it that, or is it just that suffering is coming because it's going to happen? Because we're always wanting to not have suffering. We're always wanting to avoid it.
Yeah.
But like at some point, no matter what, I mean, you even said it's our actions that often cause that suffering, whether it be wars and the decisions that are being made at the geopolitical level or little things in my own life that we're doing. The suffering is going to come. Like you suffered in your run this morning because you chose to get up and run this morning, right? But once you made that choice, because you knew that that choice was going to build up your endurance and keep you rolling and rolling and rolling, like you just kept pushing through it and making it happen. But at the end of the day, it was your choice that
Yeah.
went at that suffering. God didn't allow you to suffer through a run. He's not some cosmic puppeteer
Yeah.
that is like, "Oh, I'm the puppet master." Like it's right. Am I
Yeah.
understanding what you're saying?
So something you just said made me think in a totally radically different way, at least radically different for me. What if God does send us suffering? Now, I'm not talking on the global sense like that he creates war so that everyone's suffering. I mean, that's a man-made thing. I'm just talking about in our lives. What if, in the day-to-day stuff, maybe, I don't know if it's fair to draw that kind of a distinction, but for this segment, let's draw that distinction. What if God loves us enough to send us suffering? Because only suffering leads to transformation. Comfort and ease does not lead to transformation. Or at least positive transformation, right? Like if I'm comfortable on my couch watching TV, eating Doritos, I will certainly transform, but it's not the way I want to go. All right. So it's the getting up and running and sweating, and obviously God is not, like you said, the puppeteer who's going to throw, stuff at us. But my point is, what if God permits and allows suffering because it's unto our own good, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Does that seem weird to you? You're making a face.
No,
You're looking for something.
I am doing neither of those things. I am thinking.
Oh.
This is my thinking face. Well, I think that the question that you just brought up is fascinating to me, which is why my face looks like it does. Why does God allow suffering, shifting that to what if God sends us suffering because it's for our benefit?
Yeah. Or you could say, why does God allow suffering? Because he loves you and it's good for you.
Yeah.
I mean, however you want to say it, it's just a different way to look at it. And it may be even wrong, but something you said triggered it. And so I just threw it out there and derailed all of the plans we had for today. But still.
You didn't. I think you did not. I think I don't think you derailed anything. I think you said something very good.
It was very good, huh? Thank you.
It was nice. I'm trying to process that. Like, I mean, think about it. Think about it through the lens of Scripture, right? I mean, we have to go back to Scripture all the time. We have none of this in there, but we're going to talk about Job for a minute because the book of Job fascinates me.
Mm-hmm.
And I find it riveting, especially through the lens of what you just said. Because the way that the story unfolds is that there's like this battle almost, or not even battle. It's almost like, not to sound Mormon, a sibling rivalry between God and the devil, where they're seeing who can make him suffer the worst. And they're going back and forth. No, now I'm going to send him this. No. Now I'm going to send him this. No, hold my beer. I'm going to do this, right? And it's like this weird book to me because does God allow suffering? Does God send suffering? What is the role of God in our suffering? And in the end of it, we talk about Job in this beautiful way because he suffered, that he came out through on the other side and proved through that suffering, he was able to prove what is following God's will.
Yeah.
And what that really means.
Yeah. That's what Job's about. The devil comes and says, I'm going to mess with Job. And God said, I'm going to mess with somebody. And God says, have you considered my servant Job? You can't kill him, but you can do whatever you want to him. So he sends all these tests, and in the text, Job, falters a little bit here and there. But in the end, because he remained, diligent with God's wisdom and commandments, he's blessed with more kids at the end and more, cattle and, all that kind of stuff. God restores it all. So yeah, I mean, I think that's the suffering of Job's, why he's given that metaphor. I don't know. I just think it's an interesting idea that we tend to want to cringe from suffering, and we tend to kind of want to flee from suffering, especially in a society duped by comfort. And we look at suffering as a negative thing, which to be avoided at all costs. And yet now I'm starting to ask the question. And so then, if that's the rationale, then we would say, well, why would God allow it if he's so good and loving? But what if we are supposed to look at suffering as a good thing? What if we're supposed to chase it? What if we're supposed to embrace it? The Navy SEALs say that, embrace the suck, right?
Yeah.
I think that's one of their their unofficial mottos, but because they go through all these hard things. Like that guy, David Goggins, right? We talked about Goggins. I mean, we found this great quote. I'll let you, put up whatever you're going to put up. But for those who don't know, David Goggins is a former Navy SEAL. I mean, he went through the SEALs, and his a prolific author, great speaker. He's written 2 books, both of which I highly recommend. They're just great. I mean, lots of dirty words, but they're great. And he is now or still a long distance runner and an ultra marathon runner, which means 100 miles or more. And so he just ran what's called the Moab 240, which is what it says. It's in Moab, Utah, 240 miles, right? I don't know that I've run 240 miles in my life altogether, let alone in one race. And his feet at the end were a total mess. But he put this thing up there. I don't want to show the foot. Do we have the foot?
No.
Don't show the foot. It's gross. It's just a picture on his Insta of his foot, with all the blisters and all that stuff all over. He called it trench foot. But then he said this. Do you have to put up on the screen? I'll just read some of it. Most people look at my feet after a race and cringe. Blisters, missing and black toenails, skin peeling off. Trench foot in this picture, pure destruction. Listen to what he says. But that's the point. Those feet tell the story of suffering. Every mile, every hill, every moment I wanted to quit but didn't. It's all written right there. Pain leaves a mark, and those marks remind me who the blank I am. Listen, comfort doesn't teach you anything. Suffering does. My feet aren't ugly. They're proof of a war I survived. And then he talks about Moab 240. I look at my feet and I'm proud of the work they endured and the fact that I'm still lining up at the start of all these races after 20 years and when other people had quit and so on. Like, that's awesome. You know what I mean? In my opinion. I mean, what he's saying is that he's thankful for the suffering because it teaches him. Mm-hmm. So what if we are to look at it like that? Instead of that which should be avoided, that it becomes that which we run towards. And I don't mean, in silly fashions or dangerous ways. You know what I mean? Like, I don't mean go jump off a building and so you break all your bones. That's not what I'm talking about. But especially in leadership, which I know we'll get to that point, but I don't know. Suffering, now I'm starting to look at it in this very podcast differently, wondering, because, and I'll stop here. I ran to my suffering today. I was suffering during my run, but I ran to it in the morning. I didn't really want to get out of bed. It was cozy and warm today. But I did it. And I'm so thankful that I did. You know what I mean? And I suffered. It was hard. A couple of moments where I thought I was going to be sick to my stomach because I was pushing myself and all that. But I don't know. I embraced it. What if that's the way?
This is the way.
I was thinking it, but I don't know. It's just a different way to look at it.
You have to look at it that way. Like, you're not going to avoid suffering.
Right.
Suffering's going to come no matter whether or not you want it, no matter, like, health issues. We have a guy in the parish who I think is a phenomenal person to begin with. And recently we were emailing as he's going through some health stuff. And he said something beautiful to me. He said that, I said, I'm sorry that you're dealing with all of this stuff. And he said, I chose to see it as a net positive.
Yeah.
Like, the stuff that comes out through the suffering ends up being a net positive. And when we see things and we choose to see it as a net positive, then we're able to see things differently. We're able to see things. We're making the conscious choice to wake up and be like the guy on Friends who's singing about morning being here, rather than, Joey Tribbiani, who's getting annoyed that the guy's waking him up because he doesn't want to wake up in the morning because it's warm and comfy.
I remember that episode.
That was a great mornings here. Anyway, Scottish philosopher and author George MacDonald says something about suffering. And I hit my microphone. I'm very excited about this. And C.S. Lewis puts it at the beginning as like an epithet at the beginning of The Problem of Pain. And the quote is, the Son of God suffered unto the death, not that men might not suffer, but that their sufferings might be like his. And, you hear that, and the first thing you think is it's going to be, I'm going to be crucified just like Christ. Like, I'm going to
Yeah.
suffer just like Christ. I'm going to, that this idea Paul talks about, I co-suffer with Christ, that co-suffering with Christ really means our own crucifixion. I take it differently. I think it means that our response to suffering can be like Christ's response to suffering. That is, nevertheless, not as I will, but as thou wilt.
Mm-hmm.
That is, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do.
Mm.
It's a choice to go a different route. Suffering is going to happen. God's not sending it like some, Bruce Almighty, smite me, almighty smiter. He is, it's going to happen. And whether he allows it or sends it or whatever, I'm not worried about, because it's coming. Like, I'm going to say something scandalous. Even if God doesn't exist, suffering still will.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Christ and the gospel teach us a response to suffering that is different, that is embracing it, that is going for it, that is doing what we need to do so that we might be transformed, so that we can come out on the other side.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Christ is the ultimate reference, right? The ultimate authority. I mean, obviously. But I mean, he's the real example, because he suffered voluntarily, which is a funny thing because he's the Son of God, right? And yet he was also put to death in a horrible fashion, unjustly. And yet the real transformation is from, cross to tomb to empty tomb. But in that moment on the cross, he handles that suffering, as you said, like you could imagine he's screaming and yelling, stop it, you guys. But he doesn't. He says, Father, forgive them. You know what I mean? Like the whole process of his crucifixion, from betrayal, just from the whole gospel, it's like obviously it's transformative. It's Christ. And he gives us, he gives us the greatest of images. But you can see, this is where I got that, where it hit me. I mean, that transformation is not from life to death on the cross, but from life through death to eternal life. You know what I mean? That's the statement of the gospel, that raised from the dead, made to stand, once again in the face of all his unjust judges who put him to death unjustly and because of their jealousy and greed and whatever. It's the greatest transformation. So, I mean, really, then maybe suffering is, as we've been exploring, good for us, right?
Yeah, I mean, it has to be.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, the quote that you love from Romans talks about it all the time. I mean, it's a progression.
Mm-hmm.
The same way Yoda talks about the progression that leads to the dark side, Paul talks about a progression that leads through death into eternal life, right? There's hope at the end of the message, and that hope won't disappoint. And, it's just absolutely beautiful the way that Paul talks about it. He says, more than that, we rejoice in our suffering, knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, which is fun because character, charakter, means what is revealed, right? So it's that endurance that reveals what our character is, which then produces hope, and hope does not disappoint us. But you can't get to that revelation without going through the suffering. Yeah. Suffering, I mean, think about it, that word character and that revelation, it's like a sculptor with a statue has a block of granite and only gets to reveal what is underneath all of the stone by taking a hammer and a chisel to it and breaking it away. That, for that rock, is suffering. Not that rocks suffer or have feelings, but it's suffering to go through that process. And suffering is that process for us. Suffering, we embrace it because it reveals at the end of the day what our actual character is. It shows us to be something different. And it shows us, as it did for Christ, who ultimately shows us what that response to that is. And that is the hope that we have. And as Paul says, hope does not disappoint. Now you look like you're looking for something.
Yeah, I am looking. I'm stunned. I need my Greek Bible. I'm looking online because I didn't bring my.
Oh, which word do you want?
We rejoice in our thlipsis, in our tribulations, sufferings. Thlipsis leads to perseverance, hypomonin.
Patient endurance. It's the same word from Corinthians.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And from Revelation. And hypomoni leads to, you said charakter, which made me think about it. It doesn't. Dokimin,
Really?
which is a trial, a proof. It's like a test, but proven in the test,
Yeah.
which I guess kind of, it's funny that translation was, now I'm looking at other translations of it, but fascinating.
That's fun. So it's not charakter.
It's not, no, at least what I'm seeing online. I don't have my Bible with all the footnotes. And
See, that's why it's important to always check the original,
Mm.
not just rely on your translation.
yeah, I want to look at a different translation right now.
Yeah. Because if it's the trial, if it's the proof, it's that idea of, you prove to yourself or you prove to others that you can do it. Like what you were talking about with your run. And, often when you talk about running or Facebook had a memory today that popped up. It was our Warrior Saints Dash that we did in the parish however many years ago.
Mm.
And you used that as an opportunity to prove to yourself that you could beat your time.
Yeah.
Right. And you used that as a trial to show you that you could get through it, that you could do it, that you could keep going. It was an end goal. And having those end goals allow us to transform and then play up. Unlike the Steelers who play down to whatever team they're playing against. You're using it as an opportunity to play up.
Yeah, it's a really interesting thing you brought up. I mean, I remember that run. Like I've been training for it. And, again, I started the whole thing with running. I'm not a good runner. I just, do it for health. But I wanted to break 30 minutes. We were running a 5K. And 30 minutes for 3.12 miles is not, great. I mean, it's barely 10-minute miles. But I could never break it on my practice runs. That day, I started out fast because I was pacing off much better runners than I. And I felt great. And then all of a sudden I'm like, uh-oh. You know what I mean? And they started to slip away from me. And there were 10 times I wanted to quit and just walk. Nobody will see, or they get it's the priest, you're old, and all those thoughts. But I forced myself to get through it and fight and grind, and I suffered. I mean, I was hurting a lot, but I finished in 27:44. I mean, like that's by far my best time ever. And so my point in even telling that story is not to boast as much to say, though I suffered through it, and I wanted the comfort of walking, and I wanted the comfort of quitting. That's, two different occasions. But I fought through it for whatever, God's grace gave me. And I, there was transformation, i.e. transformation, i.e. I beat my time. Anyways, that's all.
Yeah. Good job.
So just to go back, Dokimin.
Dokimin.
King James Version.
Yeah.
Now this is English translation, but it's telling us that, there's a million ways to look at it. But we rejoice in the, let's see. We glory in tribulations also. That's not right. But we rejoice in our tribulation, suffering, knowing that tribulation, suffering works patience. So not just patient endurance, not endurance, but patience. And that patience, experience. So they're talking about dokimina's experience. And experience produces hope. So, experience meaning it's character, right?
Yeah.
Like it's kind of the same way. I mean, that's what the word, dokimin ultimately gives. It's a test that's proved. You prove through the test, the trial. Anyways, fascinating.
It's fascinating.
Yeah. Now, the only challenge, having put this out on the internet and told the whole world that that's what it is, I didn't verify that the Greek I was looking at online is what it says in the original manuscript. But
it's dokimin.
Yeah, I don't have my Bible, my Nestle Island. So anyways, assuming that it's right, it probably is, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, that's fun. So then our response to suffering has to be to embrace it.
Yeah.
Because if we don't embrace it, then we're never going to have that proof. We're never going to be able to have that revelation. We're never going to have that transformation.
Yeah.
So if we don't want transformation, then we We avoid suffering. We stay in comfort.
Yeah.
If we want to transform, if we want to level up, if we want to keep going, then we have to embrace the suffering.
Yeah.
Our response has to be, nevertheless, not as I will, but as you will. And we have to get out and do it. And it's not going to be easy. You know, Christ was doing it alone.
Yeah.
I mean, he goes it alone. He shows us what it is. We're not all going to go it alone. We're going to have a support system. We're going to build all of that stuff and go through that route and do all of those things. I mean, Paul talks about it in 2 Timothy 2. He says, share in suffering as a good soldier in Jesus Christ. It's this idea that you need some type of community. You need some type of army around you. Share as a good soldier. Like there's no lone wolves, no Ronin that are just running around out there doing their own thing. We got to, work together, fight towards that common goal.
Yeah.
Because he even goes further in the verse right after that in 2 Timothy that no soldier is getting distracted by civilian pursuits, right? It's staying focused on that goal. And the army, the network, the whatever we want to use, the community that we build around us allows us to stay focused because we're all being focused towards that same goal. And that's a huge way to get through it, right?
Yeah. I mean, also like you brought in community, which leads me to another thought, about, and we kind of alluded to it earlier about leadership though. There's a lot of suffering that goes with leadership. And I don't just mean, leading an organization or a parish or, leading your family. I mean, there's a lot of suffering that goes on for it. Oh my gosh. I just watched Meet Joe Black last night. Did you ever see that movie? No. Me likes.
Nice.
And the reason I bring that up, because at the end, oh my God, I'm going to ruin the movie for everybody. So Brad Pitt's character, he's death. And he's hanging out with Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah.
And tells him, like, I'm coming for you. And he gives him a certain amount of time. And, at the end of the movie, I'm going to totally spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen it, but it's so good. Anthony Hopkins, follows Death. So the story starts with this really hot guy, Brad Pitt, meets Anthony Hopkins' daughter in a coffee shop, and they immediately fall in love. And as they part, the hot guy, gets killed in a car accident and dies. And
I've seen that scene.
Yeah, so Death comes back in the body of Brad Pitt, and she doesn't know that it's Death and all that stuff. At the end, as they're leaving, the father figure, Anthony Hopkins, strolls over a bridge with Death. And then all of a sudden, Brad Pitt alone comes back, but he's back to the original guy that fell in love with the girl at the coffee shop. What I interpret.
Whoa.
I know I totally ruined it, but
I haven't seen this movie yet.
I told you it's
since
going to
1996. I've been
But
wanting
here's
to.
the story. The father figure, gave his life for the happiness and success of his daughter's relationship. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, it was leadership there. I mean, he was willing to suffer through, in this, in the storyline of the movie, death in order for the upbuilding, the good of the community.
Well, I mean, that's what it means to follow after Christ, right? Is self-sacrifice. Like being a warrior saint is all about self-sacrifice. Leadership is about self-sacrifice. I mean, that book that gets quoted all the time, Leaders Eat Last.
Cynic.
Yeah, I mean, it's great, but I've never read it. I get the concept, Leaders Eat Last. It's easy to say that until you're about to eat your last slice of pizza and then your kid wants more pizza. Like we took the kids out the other day. We went to a nicer restaurant than we probably should have taken our kids. It was Pizzeria Bianco in downtown Phoenix.
Oh, you went? Yeah.
Yeah, we went. We were right across the street at the Children's Museum. So we're like, we're down here. Let's take them. Whatever. We're giving our kids, mozzarella that was way overpriced on the little plate. And my daughter was eating it all up. She ate the majority of that plate. And I'm like, I wanted that piece of mozzarella. Yeah. She had the cheese. Then the pizza came. I wanted a little bit more pizza, but she was like on one and hungry.
Yeah.
So am I going to take food from my daughter? Right? Like I'm not starving. It's not going to be a bad thing to let her have that last slice of really overpriced wood-fired pizza. It was really good, but like they were lapping it up. They were they went through an entire one of those pizzas by themselves.
It's not really like major suffering what you're talking about.
No.
But you put the in perspective. I mean, the modus operandi is the sacrifice of self for the sake of other.
Yeah, but you have to build up the endurance. So if I'm ever going to be able to actually be self-sacrificial to the point of the story in Meet Joe Black, where I might actually someday have to give my life to my kids, I've built up the endurance of being self-sacrificial with my family through those little moments.
Yeah.
You have to have those little moments that work as building blocks so that the bigger moments come. So when the bigger moments come, because suffering of some sort is going to always be there, we are able to actually do that.
Yeah. I would disagree with you, not like in a major way, but only to say that when the big moments come, you better be ready.
Yeah. You got to be ready.
Yeah. But to your point, which is why I also agree with you, being ready, like in other words, being ready through all of those moments is super helpful if and when that big moment comes.
If you've only worked at being selfish, you will never be able in those big moments to actually be selfless.
Yeah.
You can never do it because you've only focused on self. So when the big moment comes, you're not going to be able to rise to the occasion. You do not have it in you. I cannot go out there and just decide tomorrow that I'm going to run a 5K. I tried it. It did not go well for me. Right? Like I actually woke up one morning. I was supposed to go volunteer at a race. I decided at the last minute that I was going to actually run the race. I even have a picture of me running across the finish line. That was the only part of that race that I ran.
Yeah, I understand your point. Yeah, no, I get you. I mean, I do understand your point. I just, the only pushback I was giving was simply to say, I mean, I disagree with you that if you don't always practice, you can never. I've seen transformative moments. Certainly not often. So I agree. I agree with you. I'm just going against the extreme of it that never. But doing those things. And to your point about the race, if you don't train, then you're not going to be able to run the 5K. Yeah, all of it's real. So all of that rambling to go back to your point to say, practice the little moments because you'll be endurance ready, by the time you get to, you'll have the charakter, it's not charakter, the dokimin, but you'll have the presence to be able to do the actual sacrifice. Anyways, all of this has been fun.
I like it.
Yeah, I think it's the most important thing that we kind of went into is looking at suffering in an entirely new way and to be able to think about it in completely new way, in that it's a gift, it's a blessing. I'm not talking about suffering the way Viktor Frankl did in the Nazi work camps. What do they call them? Concentration camps. Or like Nelson Mandela, God forbid, that any of us ever have to suffer like those men did. But even they used, both of them, used their suffering as transformative acts. I mean, both of those men did, ridiculously incredible things. I mean more in the sense, we don't want to embrace that. But if it comes, be ready. And I think to your last point about if you don't do the little things when the big moments come. So, to embrace that suffering, whatever form it may take in our lives, whether it be a piece of pizza or making a run or whatever, that we should be embracing that and looking at, because it's a gift. If we choose to look at it as a gift from God in order to transform us and make us better, that's the way to look at it and approach it.
Choose to see it as a net positive.
Yep. I love that. Tell him I said I love it. All right. Great stuff. Thanks for being with us, Warrior Saints. We will be back on Sunday for Orthros and Liturgy as usual at 9 and 10 a.m. Mountain. And again, next week for another conversation. Have a great weekend. Love you, beautiful people. As always, keep walking on the way of the Warrior Saint.